Aelioramus moved through the ancient forest, its slender body swift, its eyes fixed with cold intent. The air trembled with the calls of prey, hiding in the undergrowth. Its teeth glistened like blades, its claws whispered promises of death. Though smaller than the giants that ruled the land, Aelioramus carried speed, cunning, and hunger that burned without end. Every shadow seemed alive, every rustle a chance to strike. The forest was its kingdom and silence its crown. In this world of relentless survival, one truth remained clear. No heart beat safe when Aelioramus walked beneath the fading sun. The world of the late Cretaceous pulsed with heat and sound. Forests of towering conifers stretched toward a sky, filled with clouds that drifted slowly like white ships. Rivers cut through valleys and spread into wetlands where reeds whispered with the wind. Herds of hadrosaurs moved in long lines across the plains, leaving paths worn deep by countless migrations. The air carried the calls of animals large and small. It was a land alive with struggle and survival, a land where every breath could be the last. Aelioramus lived within this vast landscape. Unlike the colossal tyrants that dominated open fields, Aelioramus was slender and built for speed. Its body was long, its skull narrow, its teeth sharp, and packed within its jaws like rows of polished knives. Its legs moved with grace, each step controlled, each stride ready to break into a sprint. Where the great predators relied on power, Aelioramus relied on precision and agility. It could weave through trees' dark cross streams and vanish into shadow before larger hunters could react. At dawn, Aelioramus often moved along the edges of the forest. The mist rolled low across the ground, hiding its movements. Its nostrils flared, drinking in the scent of herds that passed during the night. It could smell the musk of hadrosaurs, the faint tang of carrion, the sharp notes of smaller reptiles. Its world was built from scent and sound as much as sight. To survive, it had learned to read every signal in the air and every track pressed into the soil. The prey it sought was often the weak or the young. A hadrosaur calf separated from the herd, a lizard too slow to vanish into burrows. Even scavenged flesh torn from kills abandoned by larger predators could sustain it. Aelioramus did not carry the brute strength of a tyrannosaur. Instead, it was an opportunist. It thrived where caution, patience, and speed outweighed raw power. The forest itself became part of its weapon. Light filtered through branches and turned the ground into a patchwork of shadow. Aelioramus knew these shadows and how to use them. It could crouch low unseen until the perfect moment arrived. When it burst forward, its body moved like a storm of teeth and claw. Prey rarely escaped once its strike began. Other predators shared the land, and each shaped the path Aelioramus walked. Packs of raptors moved with clever coordination, bringing down prey larger than themselves. Massive tyrannosaurs stalked open plains, their roars shaking the earth. Crocodile-like hunters lurked in rivers, waiting for unwary animals to drink. The world was crowded with danger. To live among such rivals required more than strength. It required strategy. Aelioramus carved its life through stealth and speed, always ready to retreat when the odds turned against it. In the heart of the forest, the calls of distant animals created a chorus. Insects buzzed in clouds above rotting logs. Birds, like primitive ancestors of future species, darted through branches. Beneath the canopy, ferns and cycads spread wide, their leaves glistening with dew. Each step Aelioramus took disturbed the silence, only for a moment before the forest swallowed the sound again. The land itself seemed to breathe with life. When the sun climbed higher, the mist lifted, and herds moved into clearings to graze. Aelioramus would watch in the shadows, its gaze locked upon the weakest of the group. Yet it did not rush. Patience was its greatest ally. It could wait for hours, still as stone, until the moment arrived. Then with one burst it would strike. Each hunt was a gamble, yet each success gave it strength to face another day. The scars on its body told of close encounters. Jagged lines across its flanks spoke of claws from raptors. A deep mark on its tail showed where a larger predator's teeth had nearly taken its life. Each scar was a lesson. Do not fight where escape is possible. Do not challenge where shadows provide safety. Survival was a code etched into its flesh. Aelioramus claimed no vast territory. Its range shifted with prey and seasons. When herds left the valley, it followed rivers. When storms swept through and floods drowned the plains, it moved into higher forests. It was not bound to one place, but to opportunity itself. This made it harder for rivals to track, harder for prey to predict. Its life was motion without end. One morning the forest shook with the sound of a distant roar. It was deeper than the calls of raptors and stronger than the cries of hadrosaurs. Eleoramus froze among the trees, its head lifting, its eyes narrowing. The roar came again, carried over the valley like thunder. A tyrannosaur had entered the land. The balance of the valley shifted with its presence. For Eleoramus, the arrival of such a rival meant greater danger, but also greater opportunity. Where giants fought and killed, there would be scraps left behind. Yet where giants hunted, shadows grew darker. The introduction of a rival set the stage for struggle. Eleoramus would need to adapt once more. It would need to move quicker, strike smarter, vanish faster. The land had always belonged to the strongest and the most cunning. Now the test of survival had grown harder. Yet Eleoramus did not bow to fear. Its narrow eyes gleamed with hunger, its muscles tense with restless energy. It was not the largest predator, but it was alive, and that was enough. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in fire. The forest glowed with fading light, and shadows lengthened across the ground. Eleoramus walked alone along a ridge overlooking the valley. Below it, herds moved, and the river shone like silver. The call of another predator echoed faintly in the distance. Eleoramus paused, listening, its breath steady. Then it moved on into the descending night. The story of its survival was only beginning, and the world around it waited with silent anticipation. The valley lay under the weight of summer heat. Rivers slowed and pools shrank, leaving mud cracked and dry. Herds pressed close to dwindling water their bodies, stirring dust that hung in the air like smoke. Hunger sharpened the senses of every predator. Eleoramus moved at the edge of this restless world, a shadow among trees, watching, waiting. Its ribs showed beneath its hide. Prey had grown harder to bring down, and rivals circled ever closer. Yet in every challenge lived the chance to endure. At dawn, Eleoramus followed a herd of hadrosaurs. They lumbered through reeds toward a shallow pond, where water clung stubbornly to life. Young calves lingered at the edges. Mothers watched with wary eyes. Eleoramus stayed low behind ferns, its gaze locked on one calf that limped. The limp was slight, yet it marked weakness. For Eleoramus, weakness was invitation. Hours passed as the herd fed and drank. Sweat darkened the soil beneath the predator, yet it did not move. Patience was survival. The moment came when the calf strayed. A bird call startled the herd, and for a heartbeat the young one stood apart. Muscles coiled within Eleoramus as silence broke. In an instant it surged forward, legs pounding soil, claws digging deep. The calf screamed and the herd erupted in chaos. Mothers charged, horns flashing, tails whipping dust. Eleoramus struck with snapping jaws, tearing flesh before the herd closed around it. Dust blinded eyes, yet instinct guided the predator. It wove between stamping feet and thrashing tails, its jaws dripping red. But survival was not assured. A tail slammed against its flank, and pain exploded through its ribs. Eleoramus staggered, breath tearing at its chest. It clung to the calf, dragging it down as mothers bellowed. The herd pressed close to the air alive with the storm of panic. In that fury, Eleoramus made its choice. With jaws locked, it pulled hard, tearing meat free, then abandoned the kill. It slipped into the reeds, battered, bleeding, but alive with flesh enough to sustain. By nightfall, stars burned bright, and the forest whispered with insects. Eleoramus lay hidden beneath branches, licking wounds. Each breath rattled, yet strength returned with stolen meat. Pain etched lessons deeper into its flesh. Do not linger among the herd. Strike and fade. Take what could be taken and vanish before the storm closes in. Days passed. Wounds healed, though scars remained. Hunger returned with its sharp edge, and Eleoramus followed rivers again. Crocodile-like hunters floated still upon the surface, eyes glinting. Their patience mirrored its own. Once Eleoramus crept close to drink, but froze as jaws erupted from the water, snapping at empty air where its leg had been. It fled back into the forest, heart racing. The river would not give without risk. Instead, it turned toward the plains. Raptors hunted here in packs, their cries carrying far in the wind. Eleoramus watched from ridges as they worked together to harry a hadrosaur, slashing its legs until the beast toppled. The kill was swift, efficient, merciless. Yet even raptors left remains when bellies grew full. At night, Eleoramus descended to scavenge. It fed quickly under the cloak of darkness, tearing strips of meat from the carcass. Eyes glowed in the distance as raptors watched. They hissed their warning, yet did not rush. They had eaten well, and Aeleormus was only one, for now it was allowed. But luck shifted like the wind. One evening, as Aeleormus fed the raptors, returned sooner than expected. Their bodies fanned in a half-circle, eyes blazing, claws raised. Aeleormus snarled back, its jaws dripping blood, yet it knew the odds. It turned and fled through grass as raptors gave chase. Their feet drummed earth in rhythm. Aeleormus ran swift, weaving through brush its slender frame, carrying it faster than bulkier rivals. The pack chased deep into the forest before breaking off frustrated. Alone in darkness, Aeleormus slowed its breath, shaking with narrow escape. The lesson carved again. Take only what can be stolen. Never linger where packs hunt. Summer deepened into storm season. Black clouds gathered, winds screamed through the trees. Rain fell heavy, flooding lowlands and turning valleys into swamps. Prey scattered, seeking higher ground. Aeleormus moved with them, its path twisting through ridges and slopes. Hunger gnawed more fierce with each passing storm. Then came the roar that split the sky. It was the voice of a giant. A tyrannosaur had descended into the valley. Its call rolled like thunder across ridges, shaking leaves from trees. Birds burst skyward in panic. Aeleormus froze, ears ringing, heart racing. The arrival of this giant meant shadow, and danger had grown sharper. Where it walked, silence followed. Even raptors scattered from its path. For days, Aeleormus kept its distance. It watched from ridges as the tyrannosaur hunted across open plains. One strike of its skull could crush bone. Herds scattered before it, yet its hunger was endless. Each kill left remains scattered in the grass. Aeleormus crept to these carcasses under night, tearing flesh quickly before dawn. It was dangerous yet necessary. For every risk taken, strength returned to its bones. But giants noticed more than prey. One night, the tyrannosaur turned back sooner than expected. As Aeleormus fed, it felt the ground tremble. A roar split the air, so close it burned within its skull. The tyrannosaur had seen the thief. With thunderous steps it charged. Aeleormus sprang aside, claws scraping rock as teeth snapped inches from its flank. Soil exploded beneath the impact of jaws that missed by a breath. Aeleormus fled between trees, its body weaving fast as branches whipped past. The tyrannosaur crashed behind crushing trunks. Yet the forest was narrow and dense. Aeleormus slipped deeper into shadow until the giant slowed. Breathless and bleeding, Aeleormus vanished into night. The lesson grew deeper still. Even shadows are watched by giants. Scars multiplied, but so did cunning. Each near death shaped Aeleormus into a predator more skilled than before. It learned the rhythm of storms, the patterns of herds, the trails of rivals. It knew when to fight, when to feed, when to vanish. Its body was not the largest, yet its spirit burned with endurance. Survival was no gift, but skill forged with every wound. One evening the valley grew silent. Not the silence of night, but the silence of dread. Birds fell still, insects hushed, even the river seemed to slow. Aeleormus sensed it at once. Danger was near. Moving along a ridge, it saw movement below. Not the tyrannosaur, not the raptors. Another predator had entered the valley. This one nearly its own size, yet heavier built, with skull broader and jaws more powerful. The stranger moved with confidence, tail swaying, eyes glowing with hunger. Aeleormus studied from the shadows, its mind sharp. Rivals meant challenge, but also fate. The land could not sustain all. One must fall so the other could thrive. Tension coiled within the forest. The stage had been set not only for survival, but for a battle that would decide the path of both hunters. The rising storm carried the scent of blood and the promise of conflict. Aeleormus slipped back into the forest, its body low, its mind awake. Each step now carried weight. Each hunt was more than hunger. It was preparation. The valley waited as clouds gathered. Lightning split the sky, and thunder rolled through the ridges. A clash was coming, one that would carve destiny into flesh and bone. The storm arrived with fury. Rain lashed across the valley, turning soil into rivers of mud. Lightning ripped the sky apart, and thunder roared so deep that even the mountains seemed to tremble. Aeleoramus moved through the downpour, its scales slick with water, its breath heavy yet steady. Hunger pressed hard, but something greater stirred within. It felt the weight of the forest pressing silence upon it. The rival was near. Across the ridge, a shadow appeared. The stranger predator stepped from the trees, its eyes glinting with fire from each strike of lightning. Its skull was broad, its body heavier, built with muscles rippling beneath soaked hide. Steam rose from its nostrils as it growled, a low sound swallowed by thunder. The storm had brought them together not by chance, but by the relentless call of survival. Aeleoramus lowered its head. Its frame was lean, and scarred, its teeth sharp, though smaller than the rival's crushing jaws. Yet speed and cunning blazed within its blood. The rival stepped forward, claws sinking deep into mud. Both hunters circled, as the rain poured harder, blurring the world into streaks of gray. The first strike came sudden. The rival lunged, jaws snapping with brutal power. Aeleoramus twisted aside, feeling hot breath skim past its flank. Mud exploded under its claws as it darted to the left and slashed with teeth against the rival's side. Flesh tore shallow, leaving a line of red. The rival roared in rage, shaking the ground with its cry. It spun faster than expected, its tail whipping with crushing force. The impact struck Aeleoramus across the ribs, sending pain shuddering through its frame. It stumbled into mud, gasping, yet rose at once. The rival advanced, pressing weight, forward, jaws snapping like thunderclaps. Aeleoramus ducked, weaving between strikes at speed, keeping alive by inches. Teeth closed around air again and again, but each miss drove fury deeper into the rival's heart. Lightning split above, illuminating both hunters locked in shadow and storm. Aeleoramus struck fast, tearing at the rival's leg before leaping back. Blood spilled dark into mud, mixing with rain. The rival bellowed, lifting its head toward the storm before charging with reckless power. The ground shook as it collided. Aeleoramus met the charge with all the strength it had. Jaws snapped onto the rival's neck, tearing deep, yet not enough to kill. In return, crushing teeth sank into its flank. Agony ripped through its body as bones strained under pressure. Rain washed blood across both predators as they writhed, locked together. The rival shook its head, trying to lift Aeleoramus and throw it down. Yet Aeleoramus clung on with every shred of fury. At last it released and rolled aside, gasping, blood dripping from wounds. The rival advanced again, each step heavy with killing intent. Aeleoramus rose, trembling but unbroken. Lightning lit the sky once more. In that instant it saw the truth. The rival was stronger, heavier, built for a crushing bone. A head-on battle would mean death. But the storm was its ally, the mud its shield, and speed its greatest weapon. It circled wide, forcing the rival to turn again and again. Every time the rival swung its jaws, Aeleoramus struck the flanks, darting away before counterstrikes landed. Small wounds gathered into rivers of blood along the rival's body. Rage slowed its movements, fury clouding instinct. The storm battered harder, wind, howling rain, blinding, yet Aeleoramus moved like a shadow between flashes of light. The rival roared, lunging once more, yet its step faltered in the mire. Mud sucked heavy feet down for a breath. That breath was enough. Aeleoramus surged forward with all the strength that remained. It struck at the wounded leg, tearing deeper this time, until bone cracked. The rival shrieked, its body crashing sideways. Mud erupted around it as lightning flashed white across the valley. Aeleoramus seized a moment. It leapt onto the fallen body, jaws clamping at the throat. The rival thrashed, sending waves of mud, flying claws tearing at earth in desperate rage. But Aeleoramus held fast, its teeth locked, unyielding. Blood gushed hot against its mouth as the storm screamed above. With one final shudder, the rival's movements slowed, weakened, then ceased. Its eyes dimmed into stillness. Silence returned, broken only by rain. Aeleoramus released its hold, staggering back, breath rattling ribs, aching wounds burning across its flesh. The body of the rival lay still, its bulk sinking into the soaked ground. The storm continued, yet the valley felt changed. One predator had fallen. Another remained. Aeleoramus stood tall, though blood streamed down its sides. Its chest heaved, yet its gaze burned with fire. The storm rolled on wind, screaming across ridges, lightning clawing to heavens, yet in the heart of chaos it had endured. Against power, against fury, against the endless storm of survival, it had prevailed. It lifted its head and roared. The sound rose above thunder, echoing across cliffs, forests, and rivers. It was no longer the cry of a shadow hunter. It was a declaration of dominance carved into the storm. The valley answered in silence. Herds stirred at a distance, raptors froze upon ridges, crocodiles sank deeper into rivers. Every creature knew. A new scarred ruler had risen from the storm. Aelioramus limped back into the rain, its silhouette swallowed by gray yet unbroken. Each wound burned, yet each step was steady. The battle had marked it forever, but survival had crowned it. In this world of endless struggle, the scarred hunter had carved its place. The storm raged on, but Aelioramus walked forward, a living truth, that even in the shadow of giants' cunning speed, and one could carve victory from death. The storm had passed, yet its memory remained written upon the land. Trees lay, broken rivers swelled beyond their banks, and the scent of wet earth filled the air. In the silence that followed, only the cries of distant birds pierced the sky. Aelioramus moved slowly across the ruined valley, its body marked with fresh scars, its limbs heavy with exhaustion. Each step brought pain, yet each step also carried the weight of victory. The carcass of the fallen rival lay behind, half sunken in mud. Scavengers circled above, waiting for the moment when the scarred hunter would move on. Already small reptiles crept closer, testing their courage against the shadow of the victor. Aelioramus did not linger. The battle had drained its strength, and though triumph had been earned, survival demanded caution. The land would not pause for celebration. It moved toward the shelter of the forest, where shadows gathered thick beneath the canopy. Every breath drew the sharp taste of blood from its wounds. It licked at the cuts, unable to heal them, but easing the sting. Rain dripped from leaves above, falling like beads of glass. The forest hummed with renewed life as insects rose in swarms and small mammals darted from burrows. Even after the storm, life pressed forward unrelenting. Aelioramus found a hollow beneath the roots of a toppled tree. Here it lay hidden from scavengers and rivals. Its body trembled with pain, but sleep took hold like a heavy tide. In dreams it relived the storm, the clash of teeth, the roar of thunder, the moment victory was torn from the jaws of death. It awoke with dawn, its body stiff yet still alive. That truth alone was power. Days passed. The valley shifted once more as herds returned to graze upon the soaked plains. Fresh shoots of grass sprouted where floodwaters had retreated. Raptors prowled again in packs, their cries sharp in the distance. Crocodiles hunted in swollen rivers, striking at careless prey. Life resumed its endless rhythm. Aelioramus rose each day with hunger gnawing at its ribs. The battle had cost it blood and strength. To recover it needed flesh. It stalked silently through the forest, its movements slower, yet still precise. A small reptile fell first victim. Later, a young hadrosaur calf wandered too far from its herd. The chase was brief, the kill swift. Each meal restored fragments of strength, those scars throbbed with every motion. Other predators watched. Raptors hissed from treetops, unwilling to challenge, but unwilling to ignore. Scavengers trailed at a distance, always ready to steal. Yet none pressed close. The memory of the storm lingered. The valley had heard the roar of the victor, and in its echo hesitation grew. Aelioramus did not claim vast dominion. It did not stand guard over herds or rivers. Instead, it moved like shadow between territories, striking where opportunity allowed. Still, its presence weighed upon the valley. Animals shifted paths, avoiding ridges where its scent hung heavy. Herds clustered tighter, sensing danger within the mist. Rivals grew cautious. As weeks passed, the wounds began to seal. Scars hardened into marks of survival, carved into hide. Each scar carried memory, a reminder of raptors of the storm of the fallen rival. Aelioramus bore them not as weakness, but as truth. Life was not without cost. Every breath demanded struggle, every step demanded risk. Scars were the price of existence. The valley itself seemed changed. Where once Aelioramus had walked as a hunter among many, now it walked as a figure of shadowed authority. It was not the largest predator nor the strongest, yet its cunning had overcome weight and power. That truth rippled outward through the balance of the land. One evening, as the sun burned red across the horizon, Aelioramus climbed a ridge overlooking the plains. Below, herds moved in restless lines, and rivers shimmered like fire beneath fading light. The scarred hunter stood silent, its breath steady, its eyes burning with quiet dominance. It did not roar as it had upon victory. The land already knew. Night came, and with it the calls of countless creatures. The valley sang its endless song of life and death. Aelioramus descended into shadow once more. It hunted, it fed, it endured. Though rivals would rise, though storms would return, though danger would forever stalk the forest, it walked forward unbroken. The battle of the storm had been more than survival. It had been a trial, a shaping of identity. Aelioramus no longer existed as just another hunter. It had become a symbol carved into the fabric of the valley. The shadow that struck swift. The survivor that endured when giants fell. The scars it carried were not simply marks of pain, but banners of triumph. And so the story continued. The valley would shift again. Rivals would come and go. Herds would rise and vanish. The river would swell then dry. Yet Aelioramus would remain scarred yet unyielding. Its tale was not a glory written in stone, but survival etched into every step across mud and grass. It lived where others perished. It endured where storms raged. It hunted where shadows grew deep. In this endless cycle of struggle, that was victory enough. The valley breathed beneath a sky washed clean by countless storms. Rivers cut silver lines through plains, and the forest whispered with endless life. In this world of struggle, balance, and unbroken rhythm, a single figure moved silent yet steady. Aelioramus carried its scars like ancient runes carved into flesh. Each mark spoke of battles endured and of storms survived. No song marked its triumph. No witness told its tale. Yet the earth remembered. The ground where rivals had fallen still carried the weight of that night. The trees that bent before the storm still leaned toward the memory of thunder. Silence itself held the echo of its roar. Aelioramus walked with the patience of one who knew the truth of existence. Life was not promised. Survival was not given. Every breath was earned. The herds that grazed the plains knew this as they huddled together against hunters. The raptors that stalked in packs knew this as they fought for scraps. The rivers knew this as they swallowed the careless. The sky knew this as it wept its storms. Aelioramus had not conquered the valley. It had become part of its endless rhythm. As dusk spread fire across the horizon, Aelioramus stood upon a ridge. Below, the land stretched wide and wild. Herds moved like shadows across the grass. Raptors cried from distant trees. Crocodiles slid through dark waters. Everything was alive, everything in motion. The scarred hunter watched in silence. It did not roar this time. It did not need to. The valley already knew the truth of what walked within it. The strength of giants could fall. The cunning of shadows could prevail. Survival was not about glory, but about endurance. The sun sank low, leaving only the deep blue of night. Stars rose glittering above ancient peaks. Aelioramus descended once more into the darkness, its form fading into the vast chorus of life. The valley would remember, not in songs, not in stories, but in silence and scars and the restless beat of survival. Aelioramus had walked beneath the storm, had faced death in its jaws, and had risen again. That truth was enough. And so the shadow hunter lived on beneath the eternal sky.